Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the open session of the WRPS board meeting, and I would entertain a motion to reconvene an open session. Moved by Karen Quigley-Hobbs, seconded by Tony Giovinazzo. Please indicate your support by raising your hand. Thank you. We are now convening an open session. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I see none declared. We have no closed session recommendations. So the next agenda item is a presentation, Waterloo Regional Police Services Scholarship Presentation to Nicholas Michel's second-year Police Foundation student at Conestoga College. Chief, do you want to lead off, or should we?
Thanks, Sheriff, and good morning, all members of the board. I'm going to move this over to Deputy Chief Fenton, who will walk us through the report and the scholarship. Also like to welcome Mr. Craig Stevenson as well from Conestoga College Police Foundations. Thank you.
Morning, Chair Redmond, members of the board. I'm happy to be here to talk about this scholarship. So I have the privilege of being part of the Program Advisory Council for Conestoga College's justice programs. So each year, Waterloo Regional Police Service presents a scholarship to a second-year Police Foundations student who attends Conestoga College. After careful review, after reviewing all the applications, we identified Nicholas Michaels as a graduating student who is going to receive this year's scholarship. He has demonstrated great leadership skills by being selected team leader for all project presentations. He has assisted in fundraising for the college and Police Foundations program. Most memorable, his drafting of a team for a charity dodgeball event. Funds raised supported the Sunshine Foundation. Nicholas is looking to broaden his education and is looking to tackle learning French in the near future. So good for him. So we're thrilled to be able to offer this scholarship, well-earned scholarship to Nicholas Michaels.
Thank you, Deputy Fenton. Before we go to Nicholas to see if he has some comments, Craig Stevenson, it's so nice to see you here. You are a stalwart. This is your annual appearance at the board. Would you like to add anything before we go to Nicholas?
I'd just like to, as always, thank the WRPS for the support of our program. They've been tremendous partners with us, and our graduates are always pleased to receive this this honor and this scholarship, and it's always a treat to be invited to the Police Services Board meeting. So again, thank you very much, and I don't think you could have made a better choice than Nicholas this year.
Thank you, Nicholas. High bar. So over to you. Would you like to make some comments? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say it's an absolute honor, and the education is invaluable and will be used in the future.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your success and standing out amongst your classmates, which is no mean feat because it's a great group of people. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chief?
Chair, yeah, thanks, Chair Redmond. I had the occasion to attend the Conestoga College School of Community Services Awards session yesterday, where Nicholas was recognized and was proud to support and represent our service. And there was high praise for him and many other students in the program. So with many partners at the Conestoga College, we look forward to continuing our partnership and you know, serving as the service of choice for those looking at a meaningful career in public safety, and supporting all of the students at Conestoga College who make Waterloo Region their home, you know, as a student and also hopefully future residents. So thanks very much. Congratulations, Nicholas. Thank you, Craig, for being here, and to the board for your support.
Super. Again, congratulations, Nicholas, and Craig, thank you for all your great work. It's a wonderful partnership, to be sure. Colleagues, we're going to move on to the consent agenda items. Are there any agenda items anyone would like to take out of the 8.1 through to 8.8 items on consent? If not, we can have a mover and seconder. Moved by Ian, seconded by Sandy. All those in favor? That is carried. I would just note, and I know we've passed them, but most of us were at the appointment of the auxiliary members just this past Monday, and it was just a thrill to see so many volunteers committed in the skill level that they're going to continue to bring toward the representation of WRPS. Business arising from minutes. I see none. Correspondence, none. Police Service Board reports, none. Next agenda item is Chief of Police reports. 12.1 is search of persons. Chief Crowell, over to you.
Thanks, Chair Redmond. Very pleased to introduce this report. The Search of Persons report is an annual one, but this year we have the incorporation of our commitment to race and identity-based data collection strategy, and Dr. Mandy Williams is with us today to walk us through the report and presentation. And over to you, Mandy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Chair Redmond and members of the board. Of course, I'm just struggling to share my screen. It won't be a board presentation without that component. So there we go. All right. So today I have for you the Search of Persons in Custody 2022 annual report. So as a brief summary for background context, either as mandated by legislation or required by the board, WRPS officers are required to provide perceived race in force-selected interactions. And these are use of force, regulated interactions, intelligence notes, and search of persons in custody. In January 2022, WRPS launched the race-based data collection strategy, where we work with our academic partners, Drs. Les Jacob and Lauren Foster, to use this perceived race data as a tool for uncovering and addressing systemic racism where it might exist. By centering person characteristics, including race, in our analyses, the observed patterns will help us to determine the scope of the problem and the representation of individuals with particular social identities in the selected interactions, the contributing contextual factors within WRPS, the policy, procedures, and operational practices, the training needs, and track what approaches to service delivery might work across different communities, and serve as a starting point for conversations with the community and WRPS members to strengthen trust, accountability, and transparency. In compliance with board policy, the analytic focus is on identifying systemic issues. The data will be used to identify and examine contextual patterns and serves as a communication tool. The focus is not at the individual level, whether this be individual officers or individual members of the community. Instead, the analytic focus is at the level of the organization. Our race-based data collection strategy applies a human rights framework to better understand the delivery of police services and takes a forward look into creating actionable solutions where they are needed. There is a reason why search of persons in custody is included within the race-based data collection strategy. And this is the background context underlying that decision. In 2019, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director released their Breaking the Golden Rule, a review of police strip searches in Ontario report, which indicated that police services were not adequately documenting search of person information, nor were they recording race-related information within strip searches. In 2020, WRPS conducted an internal audit of searches of persons in custody. And as endorsed by the Police Services Board, the recommendations from the OIPRD and the audit report were translated into procedure and process changes related to searches of persons in custody, including recording information in a way that facilitated reporting. In response, electronic data collection was launched in July 2021. 2022 is the first full year of data collection related to search of persons in custody that includes race-based information. A compliance check on data entry was also conducted in 2022, and recommendations for data quality were made that have fed forward into 2023's release of niche custodial module that has a data management component to it. So this is the context behind the analysis. Now we're going to move on to the searches of persons in custody themselves. Each person, when entering into a WRPS custodial facility, is searched for contraband. 4 types of searches are conducted by members to ensure that subject persons are not in possession of evidence, tools to escape custody, or any object that could cause injury to themselves or other people, including officers. Searches of persons are most frequently motivated by safety concerns. Any search beyond a frisk search must be deemed reasonable and authorized by the officer in charge of a prison management facility or a patrol supervisor. So there's 4 levels of searches that are conducted. A frisk search involves patting down the person, emptying and searching pockets, as well as the removal or rearrangement of clothing that does not expose a person's undergarments or area of body that are normally covered by undergarments. This may include checking their personal possessions. An intake search is more comprehensive than the frisk search and is done in a more controlled environment, sometimes with the use of a wand to detect items, and it provides the opportunity for a person to indicate what items the wand might reveal. During a strip search level 1, the person removes their own clothing, 1 piece at a time, down to the undergarments, and the members inspect the article of clothing in a methodical manner. The person is allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately after inspection, unless doing so would compromise the safety or integrity of the search. In a strip search level 2, the person removes their own clothing, 1 piece at a time, including the undergarments, and the members inspect that clothing in a methodical manner. The person shall be allowed to replace each article of clothing immediately upon inspection, unless doing so would compromise the safety or the integrity of the search. In 2022, WRPS was involved in 323,730 occurrences. So that's what you see in the gray. 5% of all those occurrences resulted in an arrest. In 2022, 14,706 arrests were made. So that's 5% of the total. 1% of all those occurrences, or 30% of the arrests, resulted in an individual being brought into custody and searched. In 2022, police made 4,413 searches of persons in custody. Of those, the most frequent type of search was an intake search, which occurred 77% of the time. In line with a race-based data analytics strategy, the coming slides will present person characteristics by the 4 search types. The Ontario Data Standards for the Identification and Monitoring of Systemic Racism suggest 2 different analytic approaches for identifying systemic racism. These are explained in the board report, and for brevity, I present only the disparities here. This is not an attempt to hide any of the numbers, which are presented fully in the report. I just focus on disparity-related enforcement benchmarks, because as noted by our academic partners, Dr. Foster and Dr. Jacobs, this analytic tool is better positioned to identify police-specific drivers underlying the representation for the purpose of informing solutions that are designed to reduce systemic inequities. Disparity is calculated by taking the proportion of individuals from a group and comparing it to an appropriate reference group within similar contexts. For example, the proportion of women for a strip search level 2 would be compared against the proportion of men for a strip search level 2. By taking into consideration this police relevant context, we're able to ask, given similar circumstances, do we see disparities in outcome? So taking a step back, we can put these calculations within a framework of systemic bias. So based on the literature within the police sector, the drivers of disparity can be grouped along 4 main areas. Officer biases involve both conscious and unconscious biases that officers might hold and can impact their decisions and behavior. For example, who to stop and search. There are also service-specific practices and policies, such as the deployment practices specific to search of persons that could introduce disparities. Another driver may be the way in which the member of the public interacts with the police, say the way that they're forthcoming with information, whether they seem nervous, perhaps they seem suspicious. And these are driven by a number of different factors: their previous experience with police, the way the police approaches the individual. But how a member of the public is perceived and acts in their encounter with police may influence how an officer deals with them. And we know based on the literature that there are racial differences in how people perceive the police and racial differences in how people interact with, approach, and deal with the police. And all of these inform disparities as well. And then there's choices that are made by individuals of the public around how they engage in criminal activity. The literature has demonstrated a variety of social factors that push and pull people towards crime and certain types of crime. And the purpose of the Ontario Data Standards is to help public sector organizations identify the social factors that lead to inequitable outcomes across the system. There are a multitude of factors that need to be considered when trying to understand the drivers of disparity. When police data is benchmarked against resident population demographics, we see a repeated overrepresentation of people based on race, gender, and age. And what a residential population benchmark has told us is that there's unequal representation within police data. But we do not understand which of these 4 drivers drive those residential population benchmarks. And this is why WRPS has moved to a multiple benchmark analytics strategy to help identify the why. So by using disparities, we're able to flag areas of concern to dig a little bit deeper to understand why we might see those numbers to make improvements to practice. So turning now to the enforcement benchmark data of searches person in custody, we took disparities to indicate values over the greater than 1 indicate overrepresentation. And as a reminder, ratios based on small numbers need to be treated with caution, as the addition or removal of a few cases can drastically impact the results. So in 2022, 829 searches were performed on females. So this is what we're looking at here is strip searches by gender with the total percent of based on gender. So of all the searches conducted on females in custody, 7% of those were at a strip search level 1. So in 2022, what we saw is 3,577 searches were performed on males, whereas 829 searches were performed on females. One disparity that emerged here that exceeded our critical cutoff threshold of 1.5 was females were overrepresented in strip search levels 1. So in numbers, that means 55 females or 7% of the searches were at strip search level 1, whereas 155 males or 4% of the strip searches were at level 1. So this is a slight overrepresentation of women at the strip search level 1. And then we can move on to perceived race. So what you're looking at here is the colored bars represent the different racial groups, and the percentage calculated within racial groups is found on the y-axis there. Overall, we see the majority of searches was at the intake level. And what we're seeing here is small numbers, so please take that in consideration, is we see a slight underrepresentation of white people at the intake level, or a slight overrepresentation of racialized individuals at the intake level. And this is because white individuals were more likely to experience more comprehensive searches. So in summary, this is the first report to delve into race-based analysis of searches of person in custody. And so we need to have caution with the observation of patterns because we don't know the stability of these over time. And why I'm limited to these very high-level person characteristics at search level is due to issues with data quality. So the data was entered in mostly free text form, which makes it very hard to analyze. But moving forward, we've released niche custody, so the next reporting cycle will be will include more contextual fields in there. And I would like to note that quantitative data is but one indicator of a fuller picture. And under the framework of the race-based data collection strategy, community and service members will be brought together so that WRPS can improve our understanding of the impact of searches of person with the goal of identifying potential recommended practice and targeting problem areas. WRPS will continue to work with our academic partners and human rights experts to identify and address systemic issues and drive that might drive patterns in police data. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Do we have any questions? Karen Quigley-Hobbs.
More just a comment. Thank you for the excellent presentation. And I just want to recognize the significance that you referred to of this ongoing data collection and analysis process, as it offers both the community and WRPS future opportunities to work together to address any identified systemic issues that may come to the forefront as this process plays out. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Williams. And we will now move to 12.2, 2023 Q1 Impact and Crisis Call Diversion. And Chief, do you want to kick this one off?
Thanks, Chair Redmond. I'm going to move this item and the next one over to Deputy Hilton to just introduce them, the framework of them, and then we've invited Inspector Beth Houston to provide a presentation. Over to you, Deputy. Thank you.
Super.
Good morning, Chair Redmond and members of the board. I'm going to very quickly turn this over to Inspector Beth Houston, who will probably do the very same thing and introduce Amanda Franciscini, who's well known to the board, to go through all of the data related to the impact report as well. And then Inspector Houston will give us a report on the next one. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind introducing Amanda, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Good morning, Chair Redmond and members of the board. Although I haven't seen her face yet, I'm super hopeful that Amanda is with us this morning to present the 2023 first quarter stats regarding our impact and crisis call diversion programs. As the deputy mentioned, these updates are not new to you, but I do think it's important that you continue to hear about the success of these programs and our continued commitment to alternative service delivery, especially in regards to mental health response. As you know, our impact program was launched in 2018 and consists of a variety of addictions and mental health clinicians who respond to live calls for service along with our members. Impact members also staff our crisis call diversion program, which launched back in November and sees mental health professionals embedded into the communication center for the purpose of diverting calls for service away from a traditional police response. So without further delay, I will turn it over to Amanda now to walk you through the first quarter statistics.
Thank you for having me. I will share my screen. So I'm happy to share some of the statistics behind our impact and CCD alternative service delivery responses for Q1 of 2023. So one of the benefits of having this long-standing program now is that we can track over time how the volume has changed. And really it follows a lot of the same patterns as patrol calls for service, where Q1 tends to be a little bit lower. I would anticipate that Q2, which we are currently in, is experiencing a little more volume before it dips again in Q3 and Q4. However, I would like to highlight that the CMH field team was dispatched 288 times between January 1st and March 31st. This is up slightly from the last quarter, down a little bit from the same time last year, but not very much. This translates into about 2 to 5 calls per day that the impact field team, who operates out of our divisions and can be requested to attend calls for service, is experiencing. The other alternative service delivery we have in seat is our crisis call diversion program. They are in the communications center. And across January, February, and March, they were engaged 78 times. We also track which route those calls take within our systems. So we can say that 46 of those 78 calls were handled by crisis call diversion live on the phone in the moment. 26 of those 78 calls were flagged for follow-up. So this could be either because they couldn't be reached live, it could be because their case requires some extra management. It still takes up time from the crisis call diversion workers. There were no cases of calls having to be rerouted to the impact field team, and only 6 cases where they were rerouted to patrol. So really, we can report that 92% of these mental health related calls were resolved with no officer response required. The IMPACT and CCD teams also secure additional supports for individuals by referring them to other agencies as needed. So between those 2 teams, there were also 77 referrals made to assist individuals. Now, while any call could have a mental health related component, really we've seen some of the same top 5 calls for service be complemented by alternative service response. And really the top 2 that have volume related to mental health are the mentally ill call types and the attempt suicide call types. So region-wide, WRPS officers attend about 10 to 11 mentally ill calls per day and about 4 to 5 attempt suicide calls per day. WRPS's goal is to have a 20% diversion rate. So we want to provide a 1 in 5 alternative response for these calls with a mental health component. And I can report on some success. Starting in January, we did achieve that threshold, and that has been maintained across February and March. So in terms of the proportion of mentally ill calls attended by the crisis call diversion workers, which are seated in the communication center, they contribute about 7% of that alternative service delivery. And the IMPACT team, which is in the field, contribute about 14% of that alternative service delivery. For a combined 213 out of 980 occurrences over the past 3 months, that is a 22% alternative response. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Inspector Houston. Do we have any questions? I guess the one question I would have, it's an impressive achievement. How was the 20% arrived at? Is there magic to that, or was that capacity?
I can add, I think we all could contribute here. Beth, I don't want to steal your thunder. I would say that some of the benchmarking related to the crisis call diversion program, we were able to gauge from the Toronto and OPP experience as that was launched. That was depending on the model and the community, was looking at a 10 to 15 to 20% possibility. It's the combined power of the programs that we have currently that have allowed us to demonstrate the consistency in the modeling, and we're always looking for it to evolve, change, and grow. We're giving you high level details today, but there's a major complexity at the intake level and the talented professionals in the communication center trying to find the right balance and the expertise. Now they have mental health professionals infused in doing that intake criteria will allow us to hopefully grow this as well. And just while I have the opportunity, these 2 models are a great start for our community to look at alternative streaming for mental health response. Our police service is committed to also exploring alternative programs to supplement our commitment to the best mental health response possible within Waterloo region, and also exploring opportunities for police-free solutions as well.
Thank you very much. Tony, was your hand up?
Yes, Madam Chair. It was relating to the 20%. I think Chief Krall answered part of it, and that was the long-term goal is obviously to increase that the success rate there. I presume there's always a factor of mental health calls where police assistance will always be required, right? In some situations. So achieving, unfortunately, 100% may not be a reality. Is that a fair statement, or?
I'll say yes, and then I would invite Beth or Shirley to add their comments. I think they have some probably more hands-on expertise about the partnership and how we work to find that right response. Beth, why don't you go ahead? Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there will always be a portion of calls that come in with an imminent safety risk, which obviously require a police response. Our community safety partners in terms of Canadian mental health, they'll always play a key role for us in helping de-escalate. And that's certainly one of the avenues that we're looking at in terms of expanding the program in the communication center, that, perhaps even if we know that a call is not appropriate for crisis call diversion, Is there an opportunity now to bring the worker on the phone on the line with the caller and our call taker to help de-escalate and diffuse the situation as police are responding? So that's certainly something that we're looking into, but your point is bang on. There will always be a portion of calls that we have to respond to for a public safety health risk.
Thank you very much. It's impressive. I think the partnership is really impressive. And I know when the Solicitor General toured through here a couple months ago, he was very interested in the call diversion capacity that we had. I think it is a best in class. So the next agenda item is Military Veterans Wellness Program. And am I going to Deputy Hilton or directly to Beth?
I'm going to go right to Inspector Houston. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. And my friend Holly is sharing the screen for me, which is wonderful. So I don't have to think about that this morning. So good morning again. I am extremely proud to be able to present you with some information about a program that we have recently rolled out, the Military Veterans Wellness Program. It is very, very important to my team and myself to make sure that the credit for this program lands squarely where it belongs. The Military Veterans Wellness Program is a Toronto Police Service program. It was created by two incredible Toronto police officers, Constable Aaron Dale and Constable Jeremy Burns, who are both Canadian veterans in addition to being Toronto officers. They, alongside with the others listed on the top portion of this slide, Drs. Boudreau, Dr. Dale, Dr. Collins, and Detective Smith, are to receive all of the accolades for the success of this program. In a really great story, Jeremy, I think we stopped sharing.
We're working on moving it forward. So.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I'll just keep going. In a great story, Jeremy Burns and Aaron Dale actually met their very first day of being police officers with Toronto, and quickly realized through their daily work that there was a gap in terms of response and assistance provided to Canadian veterans. And they put their heads down and created this program, which is the first of its kind in the country. Next slide, please, Holly. Thank you. So here is the mission. And as you can see, it's actually fairly simple, but it has the opportunity to be incredibly impactful in improving the lives of Canadian veterans. One of our members of our community engagement team, Constable Brian Serapepea, was at a first responders wellness event mid last year when he first learned about Jeremy and Aaron and their work and was immediately interested. Brian came back to Waterloo and he partnered with Dave Cassidy, who's another member of our community engagement team, and they worked diligently on a business case as they believed that this program should be brought to our region as well. They actually arranged for Jeremy Burns to come and present the program to the rest of our community engagement team, and we were incredibly impressed. It really was a no-brainer for us to want to bring this program to Waterloo region. I also think what's impressive and selfless is that Aaron and Jeremy have built a program with the whole purpose of it being able to be replicated and rolled out in any jurisdiction across the country. They have no interest in keeping this a Toronto-focused program. They would like to see it implemented anywhere and everywhere so it can benefit as many veterans as possible. And I'm very proud to say that the Waterloo Regional Police Service are the first police agency in the country to fully partner with the Toronto Police Service and to implement the Military Veterans Wellness Program in our region. Next slide, Holly, please. So at the core of it, this program really is an education and a referral program. The end goal is to connect veterans with the resources they are so rightfully entitled to improve the quality of their lives and subsequently the quality of lives for their families as well. When any of our WRPS members come across a veteran, and whether that be during a call for service, a conversation in a coffee shop, a word of mouth referral, or someone in crisis, they begin a conversation because we all know everything starts with a conversation. Upon learning someone is a vet, they let them know about this program. And once they've received verbal consent and gather some high level information, a form is filled out and sent off to Veterans Affairs Canada, the Royal Canadian Legion, and OSIS, which is the Operational Stress Injury Social Support Service. It really is as easy as that. Those agencies that I just mentioned have committed to a turnaround time of 72 hours. that for them to reach out and connect with the vet and get the process started. But in our experience here in Waterloo, it has been much faster than that. We've had occasions where Brian and Dave are out speaking with the vet, and by the time they've gotten back to the office and faxed through sent through the referral form, those agencies have already reached out to the veteran to get the ball rolling. So the turnaround time has been super impressive. Next slide, please, Holly. Thanks. So for the program, Jeremy and Aaron and team created a 1-hour training program, which is available to all law enforcement officers through the Canadian Police Knowledge Network. This training educates members on what veterans experience during deployment, the challenges they may experience when they return home and try to reintegrate back into their lives, some of the potential struggles with addiction, homelessness, and how to connect them to the right supports. Because believe it or not, many have no idea what supports and resources they are entitled to. I also think it's worth highlighting that this training program is available free of cost to all law enforcement members. They've specifically done this for the purpose of removing any barriers to members receiving this training and to educate as many people as possible nationwide. When we expressed our interest about the program to Toronto, they were right on board with ensuring we had everything we needed in order to be able to get this up and running in Waterloo. My team maintains an incredible working relationship with them, and we've even attended joint advocacy meetings in Toronto to further advocate for the program's success. It's been a really strong display of teamwork and collaboration between our teams. The next slide, please. So this is the bit of the nuts and bolts of the program, and I'm not going to go terribly deep here. This is the abbreviated strategic framework for the program. The mission is on the bottom, which is to improve the well-being of veterans by providing law enforcement agencies with a better understanding of veterans, de-escalation training, and a streamlined referral process to nation support services. To accomplish this, the program is separated into 5 key functional areas: training, referral, policy, collaboration, and national implementation and communication plans. These functional areas will lead to the ultimate outcome of the program, which is prosperity for all Canadian Armed Force veterans and increased public safety for all communities across Canada. As we have a time constraint this morning with a pretty full agenda, I need to keep this very high level, so I'm not going to get into a deeper explanation of the functional areas. However, we would be happy to connect you with more information if you're interested at all. So next slide, please. Some of the other important information to share, very recently, Toronto has partnered with researchers at Sunnybrook Hospital, and they've submitted a grant application for a 6-year study of the program and its framework to academically validate this program. As we are the first service to partner with them, our team and our work will also be looked at. The program is also being considered for use in healthcare and psychiatric settings to educate healthcare providers about the plights of vets. This program can have far-reaching positive benefits. It's also super important to note that this program has some wonderful internal benefits as well. Some of our own members are also veterans. They can be enrolled into this program and connected with supports as well. And it's also really important to note that you don't have to be experiencing a crisis to be using this program. CEU is tracking the referrals and conducting follow-ups to ensure that the folks are being assisted and properly supported. I can update that our referral number is now 57, the last I heard, and I would be chastised by my team if I did not mention that this number has surpassed Toronto's program. I say that as a funny, but what's really important is that every single referral can change somebody's life. Into the last slide, please, Holly. Jeremy Burns and Aaron Dale have put their hearts into the development of this program, and I can say the same for Brian and Dave. They've done the same to bring this program to Waterloo. They and we want law enforcement agencies across Canada to be a united front for veterans wellness. I've had the pleasure of sitting through a 2-hour presentation about this program and was absolutely captivated from start to finish. So our 10 minutes here this morning really doesn't even begin to do the program justice, but we really thought it was important to introduce you to the efforts being made. The Military Veterans Wellness Program tagline is "Nobody fights alone." There is power in the collective, which I think is important. And again, massive kudos to the Toronto team for the program creation and rollout, and to Dave Cassidy and Brian Serapiclia for their efforts to bring it here to Waterloo. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very impressive. Any questions, colleagues? I guess the one question I would have, Beth, is I'm assuming that if a vet finds himself homeless, that there is a referral and you don't have to answer now if you can send me information, but I guess I'm just wondering, is there a specific connection point for a veteran who is homeless as opposed to somebody who finds himself homeless and is part of the general population?
Through those three agencies that I mentioned, they actually do have some housing specifically set aside for veterans. So Dave and Brian have been pretty successful about getting people connected with those agencies where they're actually finding themselves very quickly with housing. So I can't say that as a guarantee in every case, but there certainly is some very specific resources and housing available for vets.
That's great. Thank you. So another good news story. And again, I think it underscores the partnerships with which WRPS looks to provide service for our community. So thank you very much for that. And the next agenda item is reserve and reserve funds update. And Chief, do you want to introduce this or we'll go right to Kirsten?
Thanks, Chair Redmond. Yeah, Kirsten Hand will be delivering an overview and presentation for the next two items. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the first report is the annual reserve and reserve fund report. In it, it sets revised target reserve and reserve fund contributions that inform our 2024 budget process. And there also includes a specific motion as our one reserve, the general reserve is above its targeted balance. So there is a motion that we transfer 1.8 million out of that reserve into a combination of the capital reserve for 1.6 and the vehicle reserve for 200K, which would mitigate both of those reserves that are forecasted to go into a deficit in 2025 and 2026. And when I say the reserve is forecasted to go in deficit, that means that there isn't sufficient funding to provide for our forecasted capital expenditures. I'll just touch upon a couple highlights from the report that's before you. From a positive perspective, the shortfall related to our WSIB reserve fund reduced from prior years. So that's a positive item. And through the board direction in the past, it was identified our unfunded sick leave liability did not have a reserve balance. So we were successful in getting a reserve balance in for that item. However, it is noted that there is still a significant shortfall. So there continues to be strategies in terms of building up that reserve. And then just the last item is just there is a couple, there's only one liability that continues to not have a reserve. It's not funded, and that's our future employee benefits. However, again, from a positive perspective, we were able to mitigate that liability through our last collective agreements, whereby future benefits for life was grandparented for new employees. So that does limit the growth of that liability. So we continue, as you recall, we did create a reserve and reserve fund policy in the past, but we continue through our budget process and our review of our capital program to ensure that we're using that we review our reserve balances and also mitigate our use of debt. Our goal is that any replacement or renewal of existing assets are funded by reserve contributions versus debt. So we continue to have that goal as we continue with our budget process in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. You answered the one question I had, so that the motion that we're asking the board to consider to approve a transfer of 1.791 677,000 from general reserve to capital reserve, and in the amount of 1,591,677 to the vehicle reserve, in the amount of 200,000 are both consistent with the policies that we now have, correct? Thank you. Ian.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Redmond. It's been a long time since I was the finance chair at the City of Waterloo's council, but I just wanted to refresh my memory and perhaps others who might be listening in. In the report, it talks about supporting operating budget and multi-year capital forecasts. I still remember whether it's the City of Waterloo, City of Kitchener, the region, what they all have reserve policies when there is small surpluses that council, or in this case, the board allocates where those funds go. I just want to clarify when it says supporting operating budget, that's not for ongoing operations. That would never be something that would be appropriate. So explain how it supports the operating budget, because I think there's contributions to reserves or to future capital. I'd like that to be made perfectly clear, because no reserve would be ever used for an operating budget line item, which is ongoing.
Yes, so our capital program needs to be funded, and there's a couple different ways it can be funded. One of those is for any growth-related capital projects. We can access development charges as per the region's development charge bylaw. And then our other two main options are debt or reserve contributions. So in our operating budget, we annually budget for money to go into the reserves to fund our capital program. So essentially our operating budget is funding our capital program, whether it's through debt interest or principal repayments or reserve contributions. So definitely we utilize our operating budget to ensure that we're transferring to our reserves to ensure that we can fund our capital projects. It's that balancing act.
It's almost a smoothing technique that in our operating budget, we're making contribution for longer term. So we don't have big ups and downs where the budget would go up one year and then wait till the next capital or significant. So it's more of a budgeting technique for smoothing than anything else. Okay.
Absolutely. So we look at the 10-year reserve and we forecast out the capital expenditures as proved through the 10-year capital plan. And then we look at money coming in, and then we have to balance that.
Okay, what the second question I have is just in general, and use the last year as an example, the percentage or the surplus, and there is a small surplus as a percentage of the whole budget. Maybe I won't guess at it. What would that be specific, like as a percentage of the budget that was allocated and what the surplus is? Because it's minuscule or very small.
Yes. So I'm just going to pull up why don't I just use the last 5 years for fun? So the average has been about 0.7% of the budget. And when we're dealing with operating budgets that are, $200 million, yeah, it's very minimal.
It's taxpayer dollars and it's community resources, but in scope, it's very small. And whatever surplus is there is dealt with by this board and allocated according to policies that we have, exactly like it would be on a municipal council or regional council, where the decision is made on how to use that as you described for almost as a smoothing technique. The last thing I would say is, or last question I have is, when we have, maybe I'll direct this to the chief. Have we ever had a circumstance where we would ask for a program to not be funded with the operating budget and some other source? Because that's I know that's been a point of discussion. It's not something that I'm ever familiar with, nor I think is prudent, is that it be anything that's ongoing where there's a permanence to the program would appropriately be in the operating budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirsten's nodding. Can you provide any context to that? Because there are, sometimes there's unanticipated changes year over year where we do our best to forecast as much as possible, but there are some mid-year changes that require adherence to policy and board direction. So, Kirsten.
Yeah, my only comment, as you noted, would be grant programs. So a good example of that is our call diversion program is currently funded through grant funds.
And that just to put a bow on it, that's exceptions to the rule. That would not be something that would be mid-year, and it would be a one-off, not as an ongoing operating line. for programming that has a permanence to it. Right? Good. I wanted to re-educate myself. It's been a long time since I've been on city council doing the finance job. So appreciate your help.
Thank you very much. I see no more questions. Ian, would you like to move the motion before us?
Absolutely.
Moved by Ian, seconded by Sandy. All those in favor, please indicate with your hand. That is carried. Kirsten, do you have any more information for us?
No.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So the next agenda item, colleagues, is 13.0 monthly chief of police report. Over to you, Chief. Oh, sorry, Tony, you froze on my screen. You were still voting when I looked. Okay, over to you, Chief.
I think so. The financial variance report, I just want to ensure that the board had an opportunity to hear from this report as well. So Kirsten's prepared to walk us through that portion. It was the bookend to the reserve report as well. Yeah.
Sorry, I should have referenced it directly, Kirsten. That's what I was talking. So the March.
Sorry.
Report. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so this is our first financial report of the year. So it is very early into the year. So the information for both operating and capital is included within the report. From an operating perspective, we're at $50.6 million, or 97% of our approved budget. And right now, we are expecting to be within budget for the year. I'll just touch upon a couple of the key items. As the report notes, we are under authorized complement to date. However, I will also note that on the civilian perspective, from a temporary full-time perspective, we were over complement. So that mitigates some of that under complement on a civilian perspective. And on the sworn side, I'll also note that because the date of this report was April 1st, it unfortunately did not capture our 23 new sworn members that were hired into the organization in April. So that will mitigate that line. And I also want to note that we continue, due to vacancies, see our overtime budget being exceeded. So it was exceeded March year to date by $671K. I'll just touch upon a couple of the larger variances. So from a fees perspective, we are shown over budget. However, that's predominantly as a result of timing, as most of our software licensing and maintenance fees come in at the beginning of the year. And then from a revenue perspective, most of the items relate to more so timing related items. However, I do want to note that we did receive our court security prisoner transportation grant for 2023, and it did increase over our 2022 contracted level, which is what we had assumed for the budget. So we will see a positive variance to budget for about $834K related to that grant this year. From a capital perspective, we've spent 26% of our budget to date. We're starting to see some of our vehicles come in, and we've got orders in, but we continue to get those vehicles outfitted and ready onto the road. And we're also seeing some expenditures on some of our major projects, like replacement of our HRIS system, our body-worn video and in-car video project, NG911. And I'll just also note that in that body-worn video and car video project, you'll notice that it's significantly over budget, and that relates to the grant that we received. So it'll be funded by a grant that we received for automated license plate readers that are funding 92 units. And so just note on that. And then just lastly, from a facilities perspective, our major project is the new central division. We're anticipating occupancy in the summer. The schedule slipped a little bit. We had an electric vehicle charging station become operational at our North Division. So that was a positive. So we now have one at headquarters and North Division, with plans to put them at our other facilities going forward. And I'll just also note that new for 2023 is we have budget to replace some of our UPS units, to begin design work on a regional public safety communication center, and to also brush off our facilities master plan. It was last approved in 2018. So those are just a couple of highlights from our March year-to-date results. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Are there any questions or comments on the March financial variance report? Lots going on. Thanks very much for that. So now, Chief, over to you. Chief, you're on mute.
Mute, dude.
3 years in, here we are. Thanks, Chair Redmond, members of the board. Very pleased to provide my monthly report on behalf of the deputies and our senior leadership team. Very proudly, we're into Police Week, which allows us an opportunity to reflect and celebrate several proud moments for our police service. So as you're aware, and many of you were present at the recent badge ceremony earlier this month at Monsignor Doyle Catholic Secondary School, we welcomed 8 new officers and 5 experienced officers to the badging ceremony. That was a great community connection point for us. Chair Redmond also referenced just a couple days ago a very heartwarming and inspiring welcoming of our newest auxiliary members. 28 new auxiliary members have joined us, and really it speaks to the incredible volunteer capacity and leadership of our community members that have joined our police service and will be welcomed at so many upcoming events and throughout our operations. So that was a wonderful occasion to celebrate. Speaking about Police Week specifically, the theme this year in Ontario is building bridges, celebrating police and community partnerships. So we kicked off our celebration in Cambridge at our first open house not long ago. It was a warm day. It was a celebrated occasion to bring together people from across Cambridge and around the region to open up our doors at South Division. It was a wonderful chance to connect. And this past weekend, our members were out at a number of occasions across the region, events at the Waterloo Regional Airport, the Conestoga Mall in St. Jacobs, a number of engagements to celebrate Police Week and just fantastic opportunities to engage. And then at our headquarters facility, we hosted, which I think is our largest and probably our best open house to date. Thousands of people attended our doors, also sharing a partnership engagement opportunity with paramedic services in the region of Waterloo. It was just wonderful to see so many families, friends, and new citizens getting to know our police service and us opening up our doors to celebrate and to show some of our equipment, show some of our demonstrations, and really the quality of our people and our opportunity to engage. One thing to highlight is we've had a great partnership with Rogers TV, who has done a really extensive job in highlighting the history of our service. So in this year, as we celebrate our 50 years of WRPS, there's been a 7-part series that has been launched this week, highlighting various elements about the history of our police service, our leadership journey, our volunteer capacity, highlighting women in policing, victim services, emergency response, a day in the life of patrol, and then our commitment to youth mentoring, partnerships, and equity, diversity, inclusion. So for those of you interested, will be available online through our website as well as Rogers TV. And we thank Rogers for this wonderful partnership. This will be a bit of a time capsule looking back and moving forward for us and celebrating the history of WRPS in this great year. And so on that note, I do want to thank Carla Fitzsimmons, the producer of that show, who's had a really excellent role behind the scenes look at our police service. So on behalf of our entire senior leadership team, but certainly on behalf of Deputy Chief Hilton and Deputy Chief Fenton and our incoming Deputy Jen Davis, we do want to thank everybody during Police Week. It's a chance for us to reflect on our capacity, our partnership. We want to thank all of our members, our 1,200 dedicated members, all of our volunteers, the board for your support, and most importantly to our community for your faith, your trust, and your ongoing support for us in our work and our mission to become the most effective and as safest community possible. So I'm very proud to present the celebration of Police Week as we continue on during this week. And on a final note, this is a significant occasion to celebrate an incredible career. Deputy Chief Shirley Hilton has provided 33 years of dedicated service to this region, to this police service through a wide variety of roles, through frontline service delivery, as an incredible investigator, as a supervisor, and as a leader on many levels. She has provided incredible leadership in public safety contributions at a national, provincial, and local level. And we're so thankful for Shirley's incredible dedication, her tireless work, and service to the residents of this region over many years. She will be greatly missed. She is leaving a legacy of leadership in many ways that we will celebrate for years to come. And although she will be missed and we will value her friendship for years to come, we celebrate and congratulate Shirley for her career. She's leaving such a strong legacy. On behalf of all members of her service, we wish her all the best. Today is not goodbye. We will have an occasion into next week to celebrate her and wish her well in her journey, but have to end on this happy occasion and invite any comments from Chair Redmond and members of the board to celebrate Shirley. And that is my report for the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. It's a great report, and I think really amplifies the level of activity and community engagement that is happening on a daily basis, but celebrated during this 50th anniversary with a little bit more oomph, maybe, I guess, but you're always out in the community, and 50 years outstanding community service. Now, Shirley hasn't been here quite 50 years. It's 33. And Shirley, you've been an outstanding leader. I know Chief Crowell has sort of given an overview of what you've done. I've known you both from WRPS, but also you leading that vaccine task force, a rollout that was quite formidable, because quite seriously, we were making it up as we went along, and the guardrails and the rules of engagement almost changed weekly as the province gave us edicts to follow. You did an amazing job of being nimble on your feet, providing strong leadership, but also engaging everyone. And Deputy-elect Jen Davis and you were sort of a package deal, and you always gave people the room to make decisions and to have their voices heard, and I really respect that in your leadership. You've also been a recipient of the YWCA's 2022 Woman of Distinction Award and an Order of Merit from the police forces. So I think all of those are formal acknowledgements of what all of us know, the legacy that you leave, the trail that you've blazed for women in not just policing, but women in the community has been absolutely outstanding. And as recently as a week ago, I met somebody who said that they looked at you as an example and a mentor, and she was receiving an induction into the Hall of Fame for Waterloo Region. So I don't think you can possibly acknowledge or embrace the amount of impact that you've had on women throughout this community. So thank you for that. Every one of, whether it was the badging ceremony or the welcoming of the auxiliary police, it all seems a bit poignant because it's your last time. But I know you'll do great things in the next chapter. I know your mom and dad and your daughter and her boyfriend are all supportive of this. So I hope this isn't goodbye. I hope our paths continue to cross. And I guess I would invite board members, if anyone else would like to make some comments. Tony, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, I've heard a lot of people talk about Shirley and her leadership and leaders, and I think we use those words very commonly. Someone gave me something a long time ago, and it said, leaders selflessly create the paths and opportunities for others to achieve their full potential. And I think that fully embodies what you do, what you've done with the service, Shirley. So I really want to thank you on behalf of the board, but also as a community member of your leadership within this community. So wish you all the best.
Sandy.
Thank you. Shirley, I don't know what's left to say, except thank you for your leadership, for being a mentor and showing what women in leadership can do, working together. And I've always appreciated your professionalism and your authenticity, and we'll miss you.
Ian, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Redmond. As I joined the board, Shirley, you're a great advisor, and I appreciated your help in onboarding me as I joined this board with your years of experience, and I like your quiet strength. Some of us get pretty fired up. Your calm strength is always appreciated. During COVID, and certainly from a business perspective of understanding how important it was to do the vaccine rollout so we could get back open, and your leadership and the services leadership was appreciated not only by business but by the community, and as a trailblazer, as a dad of two daughters, it's great to be able to point to examples like yourself. So thank you, and the best in the next chapter of your life.
Thank you. And Shirley, I no doubt you're probably hating this. Do you have any comments you want to say?
Thank you, Chair Redmond, and thank you, members of the board and Chief Kroll, for those very kind words. I feel like this has been the longest goodbye in history. We've been 5 or 6 months in the making of getting to some final days, and next week will definitely be my last week, and you will not see me in the uniform out and about in public. I've been certainly answering questions about when my last day is, and whether I'm counting down, and I'll leave on very fond memories of this organization and the people within the organization as well. You don't travel a journey on your own, you travel it with a team. And I have to say, this is a great team. And it's not a bittersweet, it is an absolute sweet, because I have nothing but pride for the organization and for where I am, and for where the women are within the organization as well. And with the women in leadership, I know that there is definitely a legacy there, and that there are some phenomenal, tremendous women and men who are not only advisors, but are willing to take the challenge of continuing down that journey. So I am so very grateful to those that will continue on. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony, oh, you're applauding. Okay, thank you. Every once in a while, my screen freezes and I panic, but I look up there and you're all still moving. The next agenda item is new business. Any new business? Chief, do you want to maybe comment, and maybe Deputy Hilton might too, about the federal announcement of changing to the bail process?
Thanks, Chairman. I think for today, I'll be brief that we continue to digest some of the impacts locally, but I can just say that we appreciate the board's support and advocacy in declaring a position on, I think, some suggestions and requirements for legislative evolution and advancement. And so we work in close collaboration with the Ontario Association of Chiefs and the Canadian Association of Chiefs on the advocacy front, and also as we work through the impacts locally. So I think it's been a point of unity across police services, across police leadership and the associations, working with boards, all levels of government, on trying to find a better way to enact meaningful changes to the bail reform issue, the bail compliance issue. And we'll look forward to reporting to the board moving forward on how that will play out locally, so we can ensure that the community has faith that we are focusing on prolific offenders, prolific offenses, and the highest priorities that impact community safety in our region.
Thank you. And Deputy Hilton, I don't know if you want to comment, but I did appreciate your help in crafting a motion that we took forward as a police service to the Ontario Police Service Boards Association, and it was picked up by many other boards. So thank you for that. Before, I have no information items, and before adjourning, I just want members of the media to know that if you're not already logged on, you can log on, and the details that were provided, and Chief Kroll will be available to take questions. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.